Okay, so hello, Ari. We're here to talk about a topic really interesting. Well, now here in Ecuador, but I would like to know about your point of view. Maybe in the U.S. and also you're from India, right? Also, if you can tell me your point of view about India, the US, where you live, it will be great. The topic is how has education influenced political preferences? So I'm gonna ask you a couple questions about your point of view of this. So, well, the first question will be what role do educational institutions such as schools and universities play in shaping political views? So, what do you think about that?
Um, at least from my personal experience, I think the college or university you go to definitely plays a very large role in shaping your perspective on politics and on things like social issues. And I think that can be for kind of a variety of reasons. So one, I think in terms of people who have the loudest voices, people who actually speak up a lot about politics and social issues tend to be, at least in Western countries, younger people, because younger people happen to be more passionate about issues like these. And so there are things like protests, and there are things like boycotts, and there are people who really go out and speak. And so if you're in that kind of environment, right, you're going to hear what people have to say. And for example, I go to Kenyon College in Ohio, and the population here, I've noticed, is very left leaning in terms of their politics, right?
Yeah.
Because Kenyon in general is a liberal arts college, and the student population and the faculty and the professors here are generally very progressive and very forward thinking in their ideals. And so being around that kind of environment where people, especially because whatever issues are going on in the world, people are very, they're very interested in talking about it because they care very much, right?
Yeah.
And it's important to them that they speak out against injustices. So, especially for liberal arts colleges, which tend to be, on the smaller end, and they tend to be mainly undergraduate students, I feel like there's a lot of that discussion that goes around. So, if you're in one of those places, I think on some level it is going to influence your political thought. It's very hard for it not to if you're hearing it and seeing it all the time.
Yeah, I think here in Ecuador is very similar. For example, when we have elections, there is a very marked regionalism. So Ecuador is divided in the coast part, who have a different point of view, and the other part of Ecuador have another point of view. So there is that these differences between some other demographic factors that influence it. So I would like to know your point of view about how does this influence of education in, or political preferences could vary across regions, or if it has some other factors such as age,
I don't know.
gender.
I missed what you said. Could you repeat the question? I'm so sorry.
Okay, how does influence of education or political preferences vary across different regions? Maybe some other factors as age or gender, or maybe socioeconomic status.
I think, so sorry, your question is how do these factors influence one's political perspective?
Yeah, but with these factors, age or
Right.
regions and that.
Right. So I think, all these things definitely make a difference in terms of how, a person thinks politically. I know that in the US, at least, I've noticed since moving to America, that older people tend to be more right leaning in terms of politics, while younger people tend to be more left leaning. And that's simply because the way America runs and the way the world is running is changing, and a lot of older people want it to stay the way it was, and so they naturally tend to be more conservative, while younger people who are pushing towards change tend to be more liberal. So I see that in age. In terms of socioeconomic status, I think it depends very much in terms of, how wealthy you are, in terms of social class. So, if you come from a wealthy family or a wealthy background, right? There might be political policies that exist, in your country that just might not be affecting you because you are privileged, and so that's not something you need to worry about. Whereas the same political policies might be affecting poor people or underprivileged people, and they're the ones that are being exploited for the benefit of the privileged people. And so they might, care more deeply or strongly about these social issues. But at the same time, because they might also be less educated, they might not know, what they can do. Whereas, wealthier people who get an education, who go to college, they can make themselves more aware. They kind of have that opportunity to learn.
Okay. Well, here in Ecuador, I think that there is a very marked influence or on some other factors, like, for example, gender, age. Uh, for example, I think that younger generations tend to have more progressive views, maybe in fact of gender, women may lean towards certain political ideologies instead of some other ideologies. And
Right.
maybe, well, here we see this a lot. For example, individuals from maybe higher socioeconomic backgrounds may have different priorities. So we have these differences between maybe political preferences. For example, where here in Ecuador we had a president that was in government for like 10 years. So younger generations grew with this president, and they don't have like some other references of other political views and new people and that. So I think this is very interesting because education plays a very important role in this, because some institutions, public institutions, teach them that this president was the best president ever. So they maybe became, I can say, brainwashed with this, yeah, with this model, this political model. So they don't see other maybe other aspects that influence in in Ecuador and in politics, and for example, new politic laws. So they think that it is right where we are now, or they say that it was better before, and or maybe they tend to vote for some maybe socialist point of view. And this is a problem because most of Ecuadorian people are not, well, can I say, maybe like with a, uh, with a big point of view, maybe a big background. So they maybe could not be able to vote for the right choice because they don't have
Perspective.
yes, a perspective with related with education that they have. So
Right.
that well, we're about 10 minutes, so I wouldn't like to to take more of your time. So I will just finish the podcast, and but there's been a pleasure to have this conversation with you, and thank you.
Thank you.
That's it.